Good morning, Renaissance Unity.
Good morning.
And good morning in particular to my family, the members of it that are here. I am honored that you are here. As many of you know, I've spoken at Unity over the years many times, both here and in my now home, Key West. It never occurred to me to invite my family. And I thought about that the other day, and I thought, and what made me think about it was I was doing all the readings and thinking and preparing my talk, and I thought if I could have a conversation about this, who would I have it with? And I would have it with the people I love the most in the world. I would have it with my husband. I've actually had it with my husband as he rolls his eyes. Both. I don't let up. And to my son who lives in Illinois, and stop thinking about the state here, Illinois, would have been here today, except my grandson, who's a very promising soccer player, had a major soccer invite to a camp at the University of Notre Dame, which is his first choice for school. And he's only going into his junior year, but you just don't miss those chances, or they would have been here. And so I thought, I had this beautiful family, and we're a big family. I'm one of 10 kids. And a lot of you didn't know that. And sitting right here, I have 2 of my brothers and 2 of my sisters in here today. And I'm so grateful for that. So let's have this talk. Okay, you guys got to behave. Otherwise, Terry, you're going to have to go sit over there next to Hank so he can keep an eye on you. Okay? We got that? So here we are, these gorgeous spiritual beings having this human experience. Most of the major spiritual teachings and religions of the world have taught some version of that. Whether it is we have a soul walking around in these bodies and experiencing this, or whether it's a spirit, or whether we are those spiritual beings. In Unity, we believe that, don't we? Do we? And I want you to ask that question of yourself. Do you truly believe you are a spiritual being?
Yes.
And do you think that spiritual being is now having a human experience?
Yes.
So if that is true, how do we navigate this? Because the reality is, and we'll talk about reality and the illusion of reality, but the truth is that we navigate this human experience, and we have experiences over here that we would really prefer not to have. We would like not to get upset about things. We would prefer not to have to deal with struggles. We would prefer not to have to see ugliness in the world or have it exist. We don't want to feel fear. We don't want to feel anger. We don't want to feel hopeless. We want that part of the human experience to just go away. At least I do. My guess is most of you. But there is a part of the human experience we do want to embrace. And that is the joyful part, the part that is fun, the part of interacting with the people we love and care about, the part that allows us to go out and appreciate this gorgeous planet, a part that allows us to go out to dinner with friends or have parties or participate in a satisfying profession and living a life, or being a parent. All of those are the part of the human experience we want. So how do we have more of this and put all this other stuff over here? and not pick it up, not bring it in? Well, the answer is actually simple. It's not easy, but it is simple. It is do what we say every Sunday here, is to embrace a consciousness of love. And what does that mean? What does that look like for us? Well, let's talk a little bit about conscious. We throw that word around in New Thought and Unity teachings. We see that word, but what does that mean? Consciousness is an awareness. And our mind has 3 levels of consciousness. Our subconscious, and in that subconscious are a whole lot of really good things. Our subconscious is actually, as many of you have heard, very powerful. It actually has unlimited power. But here's the trick. Yes, there is always one, isn't there, David? Here's the trick, is how do we harness that power in a way that serves us? Because in that subconscious, you have the automated things, like the commands to breathe, for your heart to pump blood. You have all of that. And then you have a second level of automation, if you would, that you learn about your environment. Like when you touch something, a hot stove, and it burns, you know now at every level, you're not going to touch that stove again. It's those kind of survival things we learn. But it is the third category of those subconscious beliefs that we engage most importantly. And that is where we have all of these beliefs. And many of them we're not even aware of. And those beliefs are the things that trigger our reactions. They trigger our experiences. They are how we see what happens in the world. And those things, where did they come from? They came from a variety of stimuli. And many of those beliefs are very helpful. They're not all big bad guys. They are helpful to know that you can have a setback and recover from it. That's a pretty good thing to know, I think. But also fed into from the sources that have exposed us to those beliefs are all kinds of ones, including how many of us were taught that, hey, life is hard. You heard that before. I'm sure I engaged it for a while, but I don't happen to believe it anymore. But also in there are the things, our judgments. When we see this, we say it's wrong. When we don't like the way this person acts and triggers our reactions, we don't like that. That isn't, but it's built in. And we layer upon these beliefs over and over and over again. And they've come from our upbringing, they've come from our experiences, they've come from the media, or what we read, or what we see. And they're in there. And they are right now, until you take conscious control of them, they're in charge of your life. They are in charge of your life and how you experience this human process. And scientific studies have shown that the vast majority of those beliefs that trigger things are learned by the time we're 7 years old. You know, I don't know about you, but I'm not real comfortable with a 7-year-old running my life. Just saying. Just saying. So we're going to leave the subconscious, because the subconscious is where all the creative power is. But it operates on programs it's been fed. And if you believe that things are going to be difficult, or things are going to be challenging, at that level, that's what the subconscious mind must go create, challenging circumstances. It has no choice. It is not the boss, but it has, because it's been programmed, it only operates on the programs fed into it. So now so what do we do about that? Well, we have two other levels of consciousness to work with. The next level is the self-conscious. And that is where we are aware, that's where we function most of the time in this world, is we're aware of what at least, now levels of awareness are another thing we'll talk about, but we are at least aware of what we're doing day to day. We're aware we're driving the car, at least I hope we are. We're aware that we're doing a particular type of work. We are aware that we have a wonderful family. We're aware of those things. So that's the self-awareness here. But do we use the directive power of that self-awareness to fix those things in our subconscious that really do, because unless we are consciously paying attention, we react. Things happen, we react. Anytime you feel yourself reacting, and now notice I didn't say act. I didn't say proactively. I said react. It's a response. And when we feel that it is sometimes overpowering. But we can, through our self-conscious, begin to pay attention to when we are reacting. Now, you think, well, God, that means if I got all these beliefs deep in that subconscious that aren't serving me, I got a whole bunch of work to do. I got to go in there and pull those things out by the roots. Well, guess what? There's a whole lot easier way. There is a whole lot easier way. You can overwrite those beliefs and will cause them to dissolve by moving up to the next level of consciousness. And that is the superconsciousness. And at that level, we are communing, if you would, with God. We are communing with the divine. And at that level is where we find our divinity. Because so many religious teachings also tell us we're one with God. Yes, you've heard that many, many times. The question is, how deep do you believe that? And if you are one with God, you're divine. Last I checked, I was divine. Now, someone want to educate me if that's changed? So it is in there, in that divine, when we move up that ladder of consciousness, of awareness. And the first step is to become aware of how we are triggered, and at least when we're being triggered. Observe it. Observe when we are being triggered. And the easiest way to tell if you're being triggered from a subconscious belief is when you react. And if you start to feel fear or anger or something along those lines, rage, then you know, guess what? You're being triggered. Now, this is a stretch, and I get this. But if you can make this leap, it is so profoundly powerful. So profoundly powerful. That if you can make the leap, that yes, there are things out here in this world, there are things in your life, whether it's a family crisis or a scary medical diagnosis, there are those things in your life that do suggest our emotions of fear, our thoughts of anger, our thoughts of frustration are legitimate responses. They are. But they're not empowering. And I don't know, when I get frightened by something, I don't want to live in that fear. And I have had a very powerful lesson over the last 6.5 years in dealing with what, in January of 2019, was a diagnosis of stage 4 cancer with not a very high probability of surviving it. But unless I'm one of the illusions of your reality, guess what? I am right here. And let me tell you something. I can stand here and tell you categorically, cancer does not scare me. Because I have learned to raise to the level of my divinity at moments. Now, I am not going to stand here and say, and nor would you believe me, that I live from that space every moment. That is my aspiration. That is not yet my achievement. But what has happened is I have truly come to not fear cancer. And I will tell you, and I debated about sharing this, but it's brand new news. You know, quarterly I have scans because my cancer was so aggressive. I have scans so that they check to see things are okay. And for a couple of years, they've been clean scans. And, you know, and that was very helpful in the beginning when I first went into remission, because it did come back in little spots here, and we were right on with treatments and gone. Well, this last week, I had some scans, and I had to have further diagnostic tests. And I actually had the doctor tell me the cancer is there again. But my reaction was not for 1 second fear. My reaction was, okay, now what? And I don't want one person in this room to feel bad or think, oh, that's too bad. It is just a fact. It does not dominate my life any more than that long journey from when it was really serious 6.5 years ago. And that journey included 46 weeks of chemo over the course of 3 years, 6 weeks of radiation, and 4 major surgeries. But none of that is to be pitied. None of that is to feel bad. What it is an example of the triumph we can know when we embrace love, and especially the most powerful love of all, self-love. That is it. That's what it is. And I did not get up every day and think, oh my God, I have cancer. As a matter of fact, some days I had to remind myself that, okay, you know what, you're a little tired today and there's a reason for that. Yeah. I didn't. And I'm not going to do it now. I'm going to live my life. I'm going to go out to dinner. I'm going to go out with friends. I'm going to get together with family. I'm going to enjoy our grandchildren and our children. And I am not going to visit the worry of that on anybody, because it's not a worry. It is a fact. And we will deal with it. And we will come from a space of love, because that's where the power is. And you know, with everything going on in the world, we see things that are upsetting to us. And we feel then, you know, those things make us want to come over here and feel this fear. But if we can look at them through the eyes of love, we can even not allow that fear in. A lot of what I'm talking to today came from a very powerful book I found about 18 months ago called The Adventure of I by Tanya Costos. It is an amazingly powerful book. And in it, she said, you know, I have this here because it's just so cool, the way she said it. Love and fear are two mental processes. And you have the choice. You really do have the choice of whether you want to participate in fear's brood, which includes fear's offspring, its anger, its frustration, its helplessness. Or do you want to participate in love's children? I even like saying that, love's children. I mean, how do we not love children? Love embodies that. And we can do that by looking through the eyes of love. And when we see ugly behaviors out there that we don't like, we have to remember this. If we truly believe we are all one with God, we are all spiritual beings, and we are all children of God, loved children of God, if we truly believe that, even the person you find behavior the most despicable, it applies to them. You don't get to just eliminate them. Because when you do, that's where the resistance is and the pain. And when you resist, you only encourage. See in them that their behaviors are the result of pain. Remember those things we talked about in the subconscious? It is a result of pain. They have been very damaged. They have known difficult things at some level. And what they have learned is a learned behavior, hate. And they show up with hate because what is really the case is their fear. Fear is operating. Fear that somehow, if they don't like this group of people over here, that this group of people is going to somehow hurt them, somehow inflict more pain. It is an instinctive reaction that they have learned. Now, interestingly enough, we're born knowing how to love. We are not born knowing how to hate. Not born that way. And we need to rise above those feelings. We need to understand that we can by looking through the eyes of love. And that is so easy to do if you realize that our reality, what we call reality out here, is an illusion, meaning it's impermanent. And as Albert Einstein said, reality is but an illusion, although an extremely persistent one. Now, if you have any doubt about that we all experience life in an illusory fashion, let me read you something here. And this, again, is from this book. Your 5 physical senses are compelling enough to convince you you're sitting still right here in this room on these chairs. Right? We have all that? Now, I might be a little wobbly, but you're all sitting still. And that's what our senses are telling us. But you know what? In fact, you and everything on Earth are rotating at an incredible pace of 66,000 miles per hour around the sun. But we don't have any perception of that because our 5 senses are only perceiving a limited amount of data. It is not the whole picture. It is not the truth. What we perceive is an illusion. And to carry that point one step further, Douglas Adams, the author of The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, says this: the fact that we live at the bottom of a deep gravity well on the surface of a gas-covered planet going around a nuclear fireball 90 million miles away, and we think this is normal. You can't make this stuff up, folks. You can't make it up. Except that you can, in the illusion that you create. in the illusion that you give your energy to. And since having this human experience is all an illusion, I know where I'm giving mine. And you, each of you, are a magnificent, beautiful, spiritual being. And you have the power to choose looking at everything through the eyes of love. Everything, no exception. Because as soon as you look through any other way, you will see the ugliness that's there. Instead of seeing a person, you want to hate them. You want to hate them for their behavior instead of seeing them as a fellow spiritual being and child of God that are in such pain. They know no other way to act. They know no other way to handle their fear. They know no other way to address their pain. That is some powerful, powerful awareness. And it makes what we do and feel and see so much different. If you've been like me, I got into a little bit of doom scrolling. Know the term, where you're scrolling the internet looking for, okay, what did these people do today? And it was making me sick, literally. I would get so caught up in my anger, my frustration. My husband called me on it. He said, you believe in these principles and look at you. You are caught up in the anger. You're caught up in the rage. What good does that do? When did hate ever heal hate? When did anger ever heal anger? When did fear ever fuel healing? Don't go there. I had this thought when I was talking about looking through the eyes of love. When people are optimistic and they call people Pollyannish and looking through rose-colored glasses. And they tell you to get real and take the rose-colored glasses off. I'm telling you, don't you dare take those glasses off. Don't you dare. You keep them on, bolt them to your head, bolt them to your mind. Because those are the lenses of love. And only through love can we ultimately heal. And I truly believe in a vision of a beautiful world, bathed in love, living from the consciousness of love, where all people are joyful, happy, and prosperous. If I'm Pollyannish, if I'm daydreaming, do not wake me up. Understood? Yes. Got it. You are all gorgeous, sentient, beautiful beings. Join me in this dream. Join me in looking at life through the eyes of love. Because, as the very first song Rose sang, there is only love. You got it, baby. Thank you.